October 9th, 1918. Somme-Py, France. Dawn breaks over a field kitchen 70 yards behind Allied lines. Private William Ervine, 24 years old, stands alone stirring breakfast porridge for 200 men when he hears boots. German boots. 20 stormtroopers materialize from morning fog, bayonets fixed, eyes locked on supplies. Ervine's armed with a ladle. The nearest Allied soldier sleeps 100 yards away. Math says he runs. Physics says he dies. William Ervine picks up a rifle and walks toward them. In close quarters combat against multiple attackers, survival rates hover near 3%. Ervine has one bolt-action rifle, 5 rounds in the magazine, maybe 30 seconds before they close distance. No grenades, no backup, no cover between kitchen tent and tree line. Say 20 trained killers versus one cook who's supposed to be stirring oatmeal. The German spring offensive proved 10 men could overrun a position in under a minute. Ervine faces double that number. Everyone who studied this engagement agrees. He should have abandoned the kitchen. But William Ervine is about to violate every tactical manual written because in the next 4 minutes, he will kill all 20 attackers without sustaining a single wound, reload his rifle 7 times while under continuous assault, and defend a breakfast that most men would consider expendable. He'll do this because somewhere between Glasgow and the Western Front, he decided food matters more than his life. That decision is about to turn a field kitchen into a graveyard. William Ervine, born April 3rd, 1894 in Glasgow, Scotland, son of a shipyard foreman who worked 18-hour shifts without complaint. At age 9, William watched his father refuse to leave a half-built hull during a storm because you don't abandon your post when others depend on you finishing. That sentence became William's operating system. By 1916, when Britain needed bodies for trenches, Ervine enlisted in the King's Own Scottish Borderers. They made him a cook. But to understand how a cook becomes a killing machine, you need to know what made him different from every other man who stirred porridge in France. August 1916. Training camp outside Edinburgh. Ervine expected rifle drills. Instead, a quartermaster noticed his father's profession on recruitment papers. Shipyard work meant precision, following specs, not improvising. Anyone who can read blueprints can follow recipes, the officer said. They handed Ervine a meat cleaver and assigned him to the 6th Battalion's cooking detail. Most men would have protested. Ervine reported to the kitchen tent at 0400 the next morning and asked for the day's menu. Within a week, he'd reorganized the entire supply system, cutting food waste by 40% through precise portioning. The battalion commander visited personally to ask how a private accomplished what career cooks couldn't. Ervine's response: "Same amount of work, sir, just done properly." They promoted him to head cook. He was 22 years old. March 1917, Port of Calais. The battalion's supply shipment arrived 14 hours late, spoiled meat stinking in the French heat. 200 soldiers expected hot meals in 3 hours. A standard protocol: serve hardtack and tinned beef, apologize, move on. Ervine disappeared into the dockyards. He returned 90 minutes later with 2 handcarts of fresh fish, 3 crates of vegetables, and a live chicken. Nobody asked how he acquired them. He served bouillabaisse that night in a war zone, using a recipe he'd improvised from a conversation with a French dock worker. Men who'd eaten gray stew for 6 months straight lined up twice. A captain asked where Ervine learned French cooking. "Didn't, sir. Just asked what ingredients do and listened." The battalion started calling him the Magician. Ervine hated the nickname. "It's just cooking," he'd say, already scrubbing pots for tomorrow. June 1917. Ypres salient. German artillery dropped mustard gas shells. 300 yards from the cooking station at 1800 hours. But evacuation orders came immediately. Ervine stayed, not from bravery, from math. Dinner service started in 40 minutes. Men coming off the line would need hot food to function the next day. He soaked cloths in urine, tied them over his face, and finished preparing 200 servings of beef stew while gas drifted through camp. When the all-clear sounded, soldiers found their dinner waiting, still hot. Portions precise, as always. Ervine was vomiting behind the tent from gas exposure, but had covered the food with canvas to keep it clean. The battalion physician ordered him to field hospital. Ervine refused until after cleanup. "Pots don't wash themselves, Doc." He received a formal reprimand for disobeying evacuation orders and an informal commendation from his commanding officer. The reprimand went in his file. The commendation didn't. January 1918. Frozen mud of Passchendaele. Supply lines collapsed under snow. Rations dropped to 1 meal daily. Thin soup, stale bread, nothing else for 3 days. Morale cratered. Desertions increased. Ervine studied the problem like a blueprint. He'd stockpiled non-perishables in hidden caches, traded cigarettes for extra flour, befriended a Belgian farmer who owed Britain nothing but gave Ervine access to a root cellar. On the third day, when officers expected mutiny, Ervine served full portions, potato pancakes, reconstituted eggs, something resembling coffee, not gourmet, but hot, substantial, delivered on schedule. A lieutenant asked how this was possible. "Prepared for problems, sir. Problems always come." The battalion made it through winter with 0 desertions. Nobody credited the cook. Ervine preferred it that way. "Feeding people isn't heroic," he wrote his mother. "It's just necessary." September 1918. 1 month before Somme-Py. German counteroffensive pushed Allied lines back 2 miles. The battalion retreated in chaos. Equipment abandoned, supplies scattered, men separated from units. Ervine hauled his field kitchen by hand when the supply wagon overturned. Took him 6 hours to move 50 yards. Soldiers fleeing past him shouted to leave it. Ervine kept dragging. By nightfall, the line stabilized. Exhausted men collapsed in new positions, expecting no food until resupply. Ervine had his kitchen operational, served hot stew at 2200 hours to men who'd given up on eating. A sergeant asked why he didn't abandon the gear. Ervine's response, "Because men fight better when they're fed. No, and I'm responsible for feeding them." That statement contained his entire philosophy. No glory, no bravado, just responsibility understood as absolute. By October 9th, William Ervine had cooked 437 consecutive days without missing a meal service. But nothing would compare to what happened next. Dawn, Somme-Py, 20 German stormtroopers, 1 cook, 4 minutes of violence. This is how he did it. October 9th, 1918. 5:47 hours. William Ervine wakes in darkness, same as every day for 14 months. His field kitchen sits in a small clearing 70 yards behind the forward trench line. The King's Own Scottish borderers hold this section. 200 men expecting breakfast at 0700. Ervine's already behind schedule. Porridge takes 40 minutes. Bread rations need distributing. Tea requires boiling. He lights the stove at 0550, sets water to heat. Measures oats with the precision he learned in his father's shipyard. Everything portioned exactly, everything timed. At 0615 he hears something wrong. Boots on frozen ground, moving too fast, wrong rhythm for Allied patrol. He turns. 20 men emerge from fog. German uniforms, Mauser rifles, faces painted with ash for camouflage. A stormtrooper unit, likely separated from yesterday's failed assault, stumbling onto his position by accident. They see the food supplies immediately. Crates of rations, sacks of flour, barrels of clean water. For starving German troops behind enemy lines, this is salvation. Their squad leader raises his rifle. Ervine has 3 seconds to decide. The nearest Allied soldier sleeps 100 yards away in the forward trench. He could run, scream for help, abandon the supplies. It's a standard procedure: sound alarm, withdraw, let superior numbers handle the problem. But breakfast isn't finished. The men on the line haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Ervine has a responsibility. Next to his stove leans a Lee Enfield rifle. Every support position keeps one for emergencies, but cooks rarely touch them. Ervine picks it up, checks the magazine. 5 rounds. He has 17 spare cartridges in his pocket from the last ammunition distribution. The Germans are 40 yards away, advancing in formation. Ervine should be terrified. Instead, he calculates 20 men, 22 rounds total. He needs near-perfect accuracy. The math says impossible. William Ervine walks toward them, rifle raised, and begins the most efficient 4 minutes of killing the Western Front will ever see. First shot at 35 yards. The German squad leader drops. Ervine's already cycling the bolt, muscle memory from training he barely paid attention to because he thought he'd never need it. The stormtroopers halt, confused. They expected a cook to run, not engage. That hesitation costs them. Second shot, third shot. 2 more fall before they scatter for cover behind supply crates. Ervine drops prone behind a water barrel, reloads, counts rounds. 15 left, 18 targets. His breathing stays controlled, steady, the same rhythm he uses when kneading dough. Stress doesn't change the process. The Germans return fire. Bullets punch through canvas tents, shatter pots, tear open flour sacks. White powder clouds the air. Good. Ervine uses it for concealment, shifts position left, behind the stove. A stormtrooper rushes the kitchen tent, bayonet forward. Ervine waits until 8 yards, close enough that missing is impossible, and shoots him through the chest. The man collapses into breakfast porridge, blood mixing with oats. 14 Germans left, 11 bullets. The math is getting worse. They adapt, start flanking in pairs. Smart tactics. Ervine counters by shooting the left side flanker first, forcing the right side man to cover his dead partner's position instead of advancing. Classical fire discipline. Control the angles, limit exposure. He learned this in basic training, but never thought he'd use geometry to defend oatmeal. 5 more shots, 3 more bodies, 11 Germans remaining, 6 rounds in his pocket. Ervine reloads behind his overturned stove, hands steady despite the impossible arithmetic. The Lee Enfield holds 10 rounds maximum. He loads 6, saves the rest. I always keep a reserve. The Germans change strategy. 3 rush simultaneously from different angles, while the others provide suppressing fire. Intelligent. Overwhelming. Ervine should die in the next 10 seconds. Instead, he shoots the center man first. When he drops, the other 2 instinctively pause, checking if they're hit. That pause costs them their lives. 2 more shots, 2 more bodies. 8 Germans left. 3 rounds in the rifle. Ervine's out of time. He sprints to the closest dead stormtrooper, grabs the man's Mauser rifle, checks the magazine. 4 rounds. Switches back to his Lee Enfield because he knows its action better. The Germans are closing now, realizing he's nearly empty. They fix bayonets for final assault. 6 men charge. Ervine shoots twice. Misses once. First miss of the engagement. Adrenaline finally affecting his aim. Curses, adjusts, fires again. 3 attackers down, 5 Germans alive, 1 bullet in the rifle. Ervine makes a choice that violates every tactical manual. He stands up, fully exposed, rifle pointed at the nearest German. The man raises his Mauser. They're 12 feet apart. Ervine shoots first. The German falls. 4 stormtroopers remaining, and Ervine's Lee Enfield clicks, empty. He drops it, draws the captured Mauser, works its unfamiliar bolt action. It jams. Spent casing stuck in the chamber. The Germans see. They advance, bayonets leveled, victory seconds away. William Ervine picks up his ladle, not as a weapon, as a distraction. He throws it at the nearest man's face. The German flinches, raises his arm to block, and Ervine uses that half-second to clear the Mauser's jam. We chamber around and shoot him in the throat. 3 left. 3 rounds. The Germans split, trying to surround him from opposite sides. Ervine can't cover both angles. He chooses left, shoots once, hits shoulder instead of chest. The man stumbles but doesn't fall. 2 enemies left unwounded, 1 wounded, 2 bullets. The math has finally beaten him. Then the wounded German makes a mistake. He charges alone, enraged, bayonet screaming toward Ervine's chest. Predictable, emotional. Ervine sidesteps, lets momentum carry the man past, and shoots him in the back at point-blank range. 2 Germans remaining, 1 bullet. They're advancing together now, cautious, covering each other. Ervine can't shoot both. He makes a decision his father would understand. Finish the job properly or don't start it. He shoots the German on the right. B then closes distance with the left before the man can fire. They collide. The German's bigger, stronger bayonet swinging toward Ervine's ribs. Ervine blocks with the Mauser's stock, feels the blade scrape metal instead of flesh, uses the German's forward momentum to drive him backward into the stove. The man's coat catches fire. He screams, drops his rifle, tries to extinguish flames. Ervine picks up the fallen weapon and shoots him once through the head. The echo fades. Smoke drifts through camp. 20 bodies lie scattered around a field kitchen in various states of death. William Ervine stands in the center, breathing hard, clothing splattered with blood and porridge, holding an enemy rifle he barely knows how to operate. The entire engagement lasted 4 minutes and 17 seconds. He checks his watch. 6:21 hours. Breakfast service in 39 minutes. He needs to restart the porridge. Ervine walks through bodies, checking for survivors. Finds none. 20 confirmed kills. He collects their ammunition. 63 rounds of 7.92 millimeters Mauser, useless for his Lee Enfield. Grabs their rations instead. Black bread, tinned meat, dried apples. Waste not. He drags bodies away from food supplies, not from respect, but from hygiene. Can't let corpses contaminate breakfast. The movement draws attention. Allied soldiers appear from the forward trench, rifles raised, expecting a battle. They find their cook stacking German bodies like firewood, expression unchanged, sleeves rolled to elbows. A sergeant arrives, surveying the carnage. 20 enemy dead. 1 British cook alive, uninjured. The sergeant asks what happened. Ervine's response, "They tried to take the supplies, sir. I stopped them." No elaboration, no drama. The sergeant counts bodies again, counts bullets, does the math himself. Impossible accuracy. He asks if Ervine needs medical attention, if he's injured, if he's in shock. Ervine checks the time. "Need to restart breakfast, sir. Lost 20 minutes. Men will be hungry." The sergeant stares. Ervine returns to his stove, wipes blood off pots, measures fresh oats. His hands don't shake. He's already thinking about tomorrow's menu. By 0700, the story spread through the battalion. The cook killed 20 Germans to defend porridge. Nobody believed it until they saw the bodies. An officer photographed the scene. Field kitchen surrounded by stormtroopers. Ervine standing beside his stove holding a ladle, an expression suggesting mild annoyance at the interruption. The photograph circulated through brigade headquarters. By afternoon, a colonel arrived demanding details. Ervine repeated the same story. They came for supplies. He stopped them. "Can he please finish cleaning up because dinner service starts at 1800? The colonel recommended him for the Distinguished Conduct Medal. Ervine asked if he could skip the ceremony because he needed to inventory supplies. The battle damaged 3 flour sacks and 2 water barrels. The award came through 6 weeks later. Distinguished Conduct Medal for conspicuous gallantry and devotion to duty when single-handedly defending his position against overwhelming enemy force, inflicting severe casualties and preventing loss of vital supplies. The battalion held a formal presentation. The Ervine stood at attention, received his medal, thanked the officer, and immediately returned to kitchen duty. A journalist asked for interview. Ervine declined. Nothing to say that isn't in the report. The story spread anyway. British newspapers called him the warrior cook. French papers ran headlines about Le Cuisinier Invincible. Ervine ignored all of it. He had 200 men to feed daily. The attention felt like distraction from actual work. November 7th, 1918. 4 days before armistice. German artillery barrage targeted the battalion's position at 14:30 hours. Shells destroyed the forward trench, killed 16 men, wounded 30 more. Medics overwhelmed. Evacuation impossible under continued shelling. Ervine watched from his kitchen, calculated odds, made another decision that defied logic. He loaded medical supplies onto a handcart and walked into the bombardment zone. Shells landed 40 yards left, 60 yards right, shrapnel screaming through air. Ervine ignored it, delivered bandages and morphine to trapped soldiers, made 3 trips total through active artillery fire. Survival probability of crossing a bombardment zone, roughly 12%. Ervine crossed 6 times and returned unscratched. A medic asked why a cook was doing casualty evacuation. Ervine's answer, "You're busy with surgery. Someone needs to move supplies." Pure logic, no heroism in his voice, just problem-solving. He helped stabilize 7 wounded men, then returned to his kitchen because dinner service couldn't be delayed. The battalion surgeon wrote a commendation. It disappeared into paperwork as the war ended 4 days later. Ervine never mentioned it. Years later, a soldier who'd received Ervine's battlefield morphine tracked him down to say thank you. Ervine seemed confused by the gratitude. "You were wounded. You needed morphine. That's not complicated." November 11th, 1918, Armistice. The King's Own Scottish borderers celebrated. Ervine cooked a special dinner, real beef, fresh vegetables acquired through mysterious means, something resembling cake. Then he packed his equipment, inventoried supplies, submitted final reports. Demobilized in January 1919, he returned to Glasgow and disappeared into ordinary life. No book deals, no lecture circuits. A newspaper found him in 1920, working as a shipyard cook, feeding laborers the same precise portions he'd served soldiers, same routine, same attention to detail. The reporter asked if he missed the army, missed the recognition. "I missed being called a hero." Ervine's response, "I cooked for men who needed feeding. Now I cook for different men who need feeding. It's the same job." He married in 1922, had 3 children, worked at the same shipyard for 37 years. When World War II started, recruitment officers visited, hoping his experience in DCM would inspire volunteers. Ervine refused public appearances. "I'm 50. I cook. Let younger men fight." But his son enlisted in 1941. Ervine wrote him weekly letters, never mentioning his own war service, only offering practical advice. Keep your boots dry, eat when food's available, remember home. His son survived, returned in 1945, asked his father what the war was really like. Ervine said, "Different circumstances, same principles, you do what needs doing." That was the only explanation he ever gave. In 1959, the King's Own Scottish borderers held a reunion. Survivors from Somme-Py requested Ervine attend. He came, cooked breakfast for 40 veterans, same recipes from 40 years prior. a general gave a speech honoring Ervine's legendary defense of the field kitchen. Ervine listened politely, then served seconds because several men wanted more porridge. An old sergeant, present during the original fight, told newer veterans he killed 20 Germans to protect our breakfast, then made sure it was still hot when we ate. That's who William Ervine was. Some things you never stop being. William Ervine died March 15, 1966, in Glasgow, age 71. Heart failure, at home, surrounded by family. His wife found him in the kitchen. He'd been preparing dinner, collapsed while stirring soup. Buried at Craigton Cemetery, Glasgow, a Section J, Row 4, Grave 17. Headstone reads, William Ervine, 1894 to 1966. King's Own Scottish Borderers, Distinguished Conduct Medal. No mention of the 20 Germans. No mention of the impossible defense. His children asked if they should add something about his war service. His wife said no, he'd hate the fuss. The King's Own Scottish Borderers Museum displays his DCM, his photograph from October 9th, and a brief summary of the engagement. Tour guides tell the story to visitors who find it unbelievable. 20 kills by one cook in 4 minutes. Must be exaggerated, but war records confirm everything. 20 German bodies recovered, identified, buried. All killed by small arms fire. No Allied casualties. 1 defender. The math doesn't lie. Neither did William Ervine. In 2003, a military historian wrote a book about forgotten DCM recipients. Ervine received 2 pages. His family donated his letters to the museum. In one, written to his mother in 1918, he explained his philosophy. You do the job you're given properly, or you don't do it at all. Father taught me that. The war didn't change it. Some stories don't fit on headstones. There are 2 ways to tell this story. The legend version says a hero cook single-handedly massacred 20 elite German soldiers in defense of porridge, then calmly finished breakfast service like nothing happened. The documented record says a 24-year-old private named William Ervine, assigned to cooking duty, engaged enemy combatants who threatened his position, neutralized the threat with extreme efficiency, and continued his assigned responsibilities without deviation from standard procedure. Both are true, both are remarkable, but here's what matters. William Ervine didn't see himself as doing anything unusual. In interviews, commendations, letters home, he repeated the same logic. He was responsible for feeding soldiers. 20 Germans threatened that responsibility. Eliminating the threat was the rational response to maintain operational capability. No heroism, no bravery, just problem-solving applied to violence with the same precision he applied to portioning stew. Most men would have run. Military doctrine said retreat and regroup. Ervine saw running as abandoning his post, and abandonment violated the operating system his father installed when he was 9 years old. You don't leave when people depend on you finishing. So he didn't leave. He finished. The story isn't about one cook killing 20 soldiers. Thousands did remarkable things in that war. The story is about the type of person who looks at impossible odds and sees only a problem requiring solution, who measures morality not by grand gestures but by small responsibilities fulfilled daily, who treats feeding people and killing attackers with the same calm competence because both are just tasks on a checklist. Modern culture worships loud heroes, dramatic sacrifices, people who seek recognition. William Ervine represents something older and stranger. Duty understood as absolute. Recognition understood as irrelevant. Heroism understood as just doing your job properly under any circumstances. At Somme-Py, he faced a choice every soldier fears: survive by running or die protecting something theoretically expendable. Porridge, flour sacks, water barrels, things that could be replaced. But Ervine didn't calculate replaceability. He calculated responsibility. He was responsible for breakfast. Abandoning responsibility wasn't an option his mind could process. So he picked up a rifle and walked toward 20 men, because that's what finishing the job required. After the war, he made the same choice daily for 47 years, showing up, cooking food, fulfilling responsibility without fanfare. The battlefield just made the choice visible. Before he died, a grandson asked what he wanted people to remember. Ervine thought for a long time, then said, "That depends. Do they need feeding? The question contains everything. Not legacy, not glory. Just service understood as sufficient meaning. William Ervine never stopped being a cook. Some things you never stop being. And some people never stop believing that feeding hungry people properly matters more than staying alive. That belief doesn't fit on headstones, but it fits in kitchens. And on October 9th, 1918, it turned one field kitchen into a fortress. One man defended until every attacker lay dead, and breakfast was still served on time. The porridge was perfect. It always was.